Hello and welcome to the Freeze Frame Rate NewsCast. This is the place where you get your gaming news for the week. Now we have 4 stories to start, and so we're going to get started right away. And that first starts with there's been a big talk in games about in-game purchases and loot boxes and things that have to just do with either money transactions or what people are considering calling gambling in video games with loot boxes. Now, there's been one organization that's been extremely quiet when it comes to this subject, and with the more ramping on this topic more and more, they have decided to start talking now, and that is the ESRB. Now, if you don't know what the ESRB is, they stand for the Entertainment Software Rating Board. Now, they are the people that rate the games to decide what content, to let people know what content's in it and what type of audience is that game meant for. They are similar to the movie industry when it regards to letting them know if it's a movie is G, PG, PG-13, and rated R. So they help parents kind of understand what's in the game so that they can better make a purchasing decision whether their child or the adult buying the game knows what's in the content of the game itself. Now, they have announced on how they're going to address this issue going forward via Twitter. Now, they have decided that they're going to put a symbol on the box on physical copies of games, but then they also will have the symbol visible for people that make online purchases as well. And this is a symbol that will let people know that there will be, and this is quoted, that the game offers, quote, the ability to purchase digital goods or premiums with real-world currency. This includes features like bonus levels, skins, surprise items, and then they have in brackets such as item packs, loot boxes, mystery awards, end of that bracket, music, coins, other forms of in-game currency, subscriptions, season passes, upgrades, which includes in brackets disabling ads, and then the brackets, and then more. And so when they kind of mean like upgrades and disabling ads, the ESRB is not just confined to just video games when it comes to console manufacturers' indie games. They also have in the market as well to rate on mobile apps. So that's why disabling ads is on that category, because you can disable ads for certain games when you buy the upgraded version. So that is why they mention that specifically. So if you're more of a non-mobile gamer, that is why they mention that specifically in there. Now, they also said that they are going to be launching a parent website. And this is going to be a website for parents that they can go on to kind of figure out what the trends are in regards to in-game purchases, loot boxes, that kind of thing, for just a way for parents to better understand what is going on in the games industry and all the trends. Now, something I have to say personally, they have just started with this, and they said this is the first step of they just said first step. They don't say how many more steps they're going to do in regards to handling this important issue that people are really bringing up more and more, and even lawmakers are starting to bring up. Specifically, a lawmaker in Hawaii is bringing up loot boxes and how it's considered gambling. Now, the biggest thing, I think this is a good idea so far from the ESRB. Why do I think that way? I think that way because it doesn't harm games. I think it does that for many reasons. It's not forcing people, like people have recommended that if a game had any kind of in-purchase or loot boxes, which some people, again, I said consider that gambling, should be M-rated, is what people were starting to say. And I think that would have hurt the games industry as a whole. I think it would have harmed the market that it's towards, because it would have harmed the market. It would have made people less inclined to do any kind of season pass if it's a teen game, because it would have to automatically be rated M. And I think that cuts out a market automatically by doing such a thing, which they're not doing whatsoever. I was just kind of using an example of what people have been talking about and saying why this is a better alternative right now for what they are talking about right now. It doesn't limit the market. The other point, it really helps parents to figure out what's going on with the game and helps them better understand when there's microtransactions in games. And it just allows them to kind of better understand if their kids are going to be spending potentially extra money on a game. But this also is a big wake up for parents, I think. I think parents need to be more informed and more understanding when it becomes for gamers. I can tell you from my experience, when I was a kid, my mom had no idea about video games and had no idea about the restrictions and like things that go on online and purchases and those kinds of things. She had no idea about those. I would buy my games and just play my games, and she wouldn't have any oversight on that. And for me, I felt like that was fine for me, but for some other families, like sometimes they do need that oversight, especially for how young certain people are playing certain games. It really just depends on the person. And if they want that oversight and if they're upset about these microtransactions, then the parents need to take more responsibility about being informed and understanding what's going on in games. And this is just another good way for parents to understand. So it's a nice tool for parents that want to get involved, that choose to get involved in regards to their children and how they're playing video games. Now, something that parents probably don't understand is each console does have a really good intuitive parental control that are already on the consoles already, that parents can access and be able to deny access to certain types of games. So if they put the disc in for that game, it will not allow them to play it because it's under that restriction. Other things including purchasing games. It can actually tell you what you can limit your purchases to. So even if you do allow your kids to buy games, it'll tell you what it can limit your purchases or even cut off purchases altogether and not put your credit card there, or put your credit card there but under a restriction that's under a code that the child does not know. So overall, I think this so far is just the ESRB is doing a really good job of trying to just be informative rather than being affecting the games industry and affecting the markets. I think the more information you can offer people and saying we're offering you resources to understand what you're purchasing, that's not being as intrusive as saying be an M-rated game if you have any kind of in-app purchases or loot boxes or anything like that. You have to be M-rated. That cuts off the market. That doesn't help the games industry at all whatsoever. Keep growing. Allowing this to have them have the information and allow the parents to parent, like if they believe that the kids shouldn't be doing microtransactions, then they need to parent their child and say enough's enough and start being more involved in their gaming. And these are tools to help them be more informed about gaming, because most of the time they're getting their information from their kids, and who in their right mind as a child would tell their parents the full truth in regards to what they're purchasing, especially if the parents aren't taking a interest or even really monitoring what the kids are doing in regards to gaming. So again, overall, I think it's less intrusive. It's way better than what the alternative is, what people are throwing out throughout this week when the news was really starting to ramp up in regards to loot boxes and in-app purchases. There's been some market research out showing of how people feel in regards to microtransactions and those kinds of things. So it's kind of been a conversation that's been growing and growing, and finally it's been ready to implode. So the ESRB is trying to do something, and I think it's a positive direction for what they're doing for the games industry right now. And it's a huge issue, and people I don't know what the next steps are, and that's the only thing that worries me is if they're saying this is the first step, I wonder what the next steps will be specifically. Maybe they're just saying, let's see what the first steps are, see how they work, and then adapt from there. But if it's not working, I don't know if they're going to feel like they need to be more intrusive when it regards to how to restrict games in regards to like the example I used with putting an M rating on a game if it has microtransactions, like people have stated that people should do. And I don't agree with that whatsoever. I don't think that's a good idea for games. Now, on to our next story, which was a surprise, but yet not a surprise all at the same time. So it has been released that Rovio, and I don't know if I pronounced that right. I apologize if I did not pronounce that correct, which is the creator, the publisher, the developer for the property of Angry Birds. Now, they have taken a 50% hit in their value due due to a lower than expected profit forecast. Now, even though they had generated about $365 million in revenue last year in 2017, which was still a 55% increase over what they did in 2016, they still missed their profits in 2017 by about $319 million. And so this has really harmed them a bit, and they have went public into the market as of last year. And when they did that, the company was market valued at about $1.1 billion. And now, since the value has dropped about 50% due to those lower than expected forecast profits, they have dropped their value to below $500 million. It dropped its value in half. So it's a huge drop, and people see them not making up their losses due to the extreme competitive market with a lot of different mobile games that are doing great and has been adapting and been doing awesome. I have to say, first off, I'm not really surprised by this story. When I was reading this and when I was reading the comments and talking with people and having conversations, really, we weren't surprised by this at all whatsoever. Like, Angry Birds has been out since 2009. It's almost been 10 full years of Angry Birds, and they have used the property probably to the farthest extent that they could have. They have licensed the property. So there's Angry Birds Star Wars. I've seen stuff like that before. They even have gone as so far as going to a movie. In 2016, they released the Angry Birds movie, which had done pretty well. I think it was made for about $79 million, not including marketing, and I think it made about $365 million. So, and usually you wanna, if you're kind of guessing estimations, they usually do about the same amount in marketing as they do of making the movie. So they probably spent about $37 million in marketing. So it was made for around $70 million. So because they made about 360 something million, that's a pretty good profit for a movie, an animated movie specifically. But because of that success, it still didn't improve the performance of how the company did, because obviously it went down 50% in its value, even with this successful franchised movie. But they have gone through all the iterations they possibly could have gone through. I mean, they have been not relevant really in the mobile market anymore since they've kind of launched, and they kind of were one of the big firsts in regards to the mobile market gaming. And these now big games that they are going up against, they haven't been in the market as long as Angry Birds has, and so they haven't accessed all their possibilities. Like, example, Candy Crush. Candy Crush had a TV show, and it was because it was so big and so famous, but then at the same time, Candy Crush was also relatively new. I mean, the property has not been out for the last almost 10 years like Angry Birds has, so it hasn't been able to yet see the end of its true potential because it's still working on trying to find different avenues that Angry Birds probably has already explored. So I don't see them making up their profits, and I don't see them becoming as relevant as they were again unless they did something major, unless they changed the game, not entirely to where it's unrecognizable, but that they had an evolution of the game, and the game felt evolved, and it made it feel like it's like a new game, but it's still recognizable as Angry Birds. And I don't see them doing that. I think they have just shown that throughout how they've handled this, that they are looking just to make their money the best way they could, and that was licensing the products and then making the movie. And I just don't see what other avenue they could explore to make those profits back. So if you have any stock in Angry Birds in that company, I highly doubt that you don't highly doubt, I would recommend that you don't put all your money in that company, because I don't think it's coming back from it. And this is where, when people and stakeholders put money in mobile games, you really got to ride it when it starts and when it becomes big. But then when it becomes big, you need to make an assessment of yourself of, can this franchise be a sustained, successful franchise? And Angry Birds is not one that's going to last 10 years, and I'm not going to last 20 years. So you got to get off that bandwagon as soon as you feel like it's going to make a turn for the worst, because mobile market's really competitive, because right now is probably the most explosive time in regards to games, because it's so easy now to make a game, and there's so many kits ready to go to just make your own video game on mobile. And so it's not that difficult to do, and so that saturates the market and makes it really hard to stand out. And so Angry Birds has been lost in that saturation since the market exploded. Really, I would say within the last 5 years, the market truly has exploded in regards to how mobile gaming works, and they were kind of before that, and so they haven't been able to evolve correctly since. So that is it for that one. I mean, I think they will no longer be a business probably within the next 5 years. I highly doubt they would be a big business like they used to be back then. So on to our next story, which is this past week was all about DICE. And so if you don't know what DICE is, it stands for Design, Innovate, Communicate, and Entertain. And this is a place that developers, so usually you have like conferences like E3, Paris Games Week, PlayStation Experience, where there's conferences that the publishers come talk about their games and how great, and show trailers and show gameplay videos to get people excited about games and have people try out games. But this one is very, very special, because this one is developer only exclusive, and it's exclusively that way because developers get together to kind of talk about games, talk about trends, talk about how they create and learn from each other, and to better innovate the industry, which is very cool to have in an industry where all these developers kind of come together and share ideas, and then they bring them back to their teams, and then the teams use those ideas and innovate their games. And that's how I think really that's a great idea, and it really makes the games industry constantly grow and constantly learn from each other and constantly become relevant. So they also do a award show that is not chosen by the publications like the video game awards are at the end of the year. This one is chosen by a panel created within different developers. And so they get to vote for basically games that they award for a lot of different innovations. So basically, during this award season, they based off of a lot of categories. There were kind of three big winners when it came to the DICE Awards. And obviously, Zelda was taking home the most awards with 4 awards, with Game of the Year, Outstanding Achievement in Game Direction, Outstanding Achievement in Game Design, and then Adventure Game of the Year. Now, the second kind of big winner, Cuphead, was taking 3 awards with Outstanding Achievement in Original Music Composition, Outstanding Achievement in Art Direction, and Outstanding Achievement in Animation. And then finally, Horizon Zero Dawn took home 2 awards. One of them was for Outstanding Technical Achievement, and then the other for Outstanding Achievement in Story. And so, and there were a lot more winners in different other categories, but those were the 3 that won multiple awards and really were the big winners in regards to how the awards went. Now, I think the winners that won the awards, the bigger awards, and won as many as they did, they should. I mean, they were the pinnacle of how good the year was. Zelda was a great game. Horizon Zero Dawn was a great game. Cuphead was a out of nowhere, I wouldn't say out of nowhere, but it was a game that we've been waiting forever, and it did not disappoint in regards to the innovation that they did, in regards to how they did the music and the art direction and all those kinds of things that makes it very unique and really made it truly a special game that the industry really appreciated, and I think that it was well deserving of its appreciation. But I personally think that there was a certain award that should have been switched. And this example, I think truly that Zelda did not deserve Game of the Year. I truly think that it should have been given to Horizon. Now, before you blow up on me, hear me out. Just hear me out for a second. I will first state I really liked playing Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I don't think that I think it was not as good as Horizon Zero Dawn, but and the reason I think Zelda was just more appealing in regards to it was regarded because Zelda's never done an open world before, and so it was very fresh to people that have played Zelda and have the nostalgia for Zelda and just really bought into it. Where I think Horizon just did a lot of these open world things better than Legend of Zelda did. It had more story, had better fighting mechanics, had better world interactivity, which, like, when I mean that, the ways the robots interacted with each other, I'll tell a really quick story. And what I kind of mean in my example of that is I was playing the game and I was traveling in a certain area, and I had two creatures ended up fighting each other. Two of the robots, two different kinds of robots were fighting each other, and I was going to go, oh, I'll sneak around them. And somehow one of the creatures threw the other one, and they didn't know I was there, but they threw the creature got thrown, and it got thrown right on top of me. And not necessarily right on top of me, but like right next to me. And so then both creatures saw me, and just having that interaction where they would interact really the way they interacted was if animals were acting with each other, and then you're trying to sneak around them, and all of a sudden, because of those circumstances, they found you. And most of the time you would go, oh crap, like it was out of my control, but it just felt so real, and the interactivity, and it's just nothing like it in any other game that I really have played where it felt more real as an open world than that moment right there. And so it really blew me away in that standpoint over what Zelda did in Breath of the Wild. Now, the only reason why I'm really pushing that I say this one really deserved Game of the Year in the DICE Awards, I still believe that I am okay and fine with saying Legend of Zelda deserved Game of the Year for the publications. They loved that game, and that is their choice to make. In regards to the DICE Awards, the only reason why I'm slightly confused, not necessarily confused, but just not as I don't even know what the word I'm looking for is, but the reason why I'm not as a fan of saying that Legend of Zelda deserved this award over Horizon Zero Dawn was just because the DICE Awards is more about game development. It's really about achievement, technicality, complexity that developers understand in regards to making a video game. And just Horizon Zero Dawn had so many more layers in regards to how to develop a video game, and how those creatures interacted with each other were complex systems. Now, I understand that the Switch is not as powerful console as the Sony PlayStation, but it doesn't matter because it's still more complex regardless of what console you're making it for. It's more complex to have those interconnectivities, and for a publisher that has never made any kind of open world, they've made first person shooters their entire careers, and now have all of a sudden taken a full 180 and has just made a third person open world RPG action adventure game. That's I mean, the way they technically have did it, and it was so clean and smooth, and it wasn't, this game was rated really well by publications. It was rated in the 9s. It wasn't rated in the 8s, and it's not like it was a first timer that, oh, this was a decent game. No, this was a great game. A lot of people loved this game. And that was the only issue I had with that specific award, and why that I felt like it was more of a developer reason rather than I think Horizon's better than Zelda. I do think that, but they both are really great games. And Zelda getting like best game direction, that's totally fine, because you're taking a franchise that has never ever touched an open world, and it was able to do it in a unique and different way that they've never done it before. And so going with that, earning that direction award was totally fine. It's well deserving. You're taking a team that is used to making a certain way of that specific franchise, and yet trying to make a new way to make a game in an open world style, but yet feel true to its culture. And the reason why I say that's over Horizon Zero Dawn, the difference is Horizon's a brand new franchise, and so therefore they don't have to try to adapt what made Horizon feel like Horizon, because Horizon was never made before. And that's the reason why I think the direction really deserve to go to Zelda. And then obviously it deserved adventure game. It's more of an adventure game than Horizon Zero Dawn is ever. Horizon's more of an action game than an adventure game. So it's that was only why I said that. And I could be totally wrong. And if I am, or if you think I'm right, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear that conversation from you guys. But let's get to our final story, which is, speaking of Horizon and Sony, they have announced that they have sold physical and digital total of 7.6 million copies of Horizon Zero Dawn. Now, this is amazing. To put in perspective, Uncharted 4 sold 8.7 million copies, which is the number one selling first-party PlayStation game for Sony on the PlayStation 4. And to think about that as well is that Uncharted 4 is an established franchise. It was on its last game that's saying like this is the end of the Uncharted series, and people wanted to know how to end it. So people bought that game. A lot of people bought that game. And it was a final one concluding it, and Horizon only sold 1 million less so far than Uncharted 4, which it's insane. It just puts the stake in the ground to show that Horizon truly is a franchise. People could already tell, and the way it was hyped, the way it reviewed really great, and the way they were talking about it, it just really showed that they knew it was an established franchise. But this just puts that stake in the ground even more to say, yes, this is an established franchise, and they can't go back. They can't go back to Killzone. They need to continue with the trend that they have. And the funny part is, like, this game almost never happened. If I highly recommend you watch this. It's a documentary by Danny O'Dwyer. I think he worked for GameSpot, if I remember correctly, but he left. He started a Patreon called No Clip, where he does video documentaries with publishers to cover different stories, and he covered the history of in a sense, he covered the history of Horizon Zero Dawn, but also covered how the developer Guerrilla Games kind of came into play, and how their development came into play, and then how Horizon kind of came into that equation. And it almost never happened. Like the making of Horizon, they scrapped the idea and almost not come back to it. So I highly recommend you check it out. It's a great documentary by Danny O'Dwyer. And there's a little bit of some surprises that you never thought that in the development of the game that they were going to go that direction, and then they ended up changing it. But it was really cool. Check it out. I highly recommend it. And it just, I've already, the game itself, it already teased that it's getting a sequel. It teased like the movies, where it has the end credit sequence where it says, like, if this is a franchise, here's what the direction we could go with the next movie, or in this case, the next game. And so I bet they already have it in the works, and it's on its way. This just really shows the team, shows that a team of creators, if you back them with resources and they have a vision and you support that vision, it just shows of the results you can get from supporting someone's vision rather than thinking about the money. It really does, because if you make the games, if you make the good games, the money's going to be there. And this is proof. This is a franchise that's on one console only, and it's sold 7.6 million copies. That's more than it sells sometimes when you go multi-platform. So it just really shows that if you make a great game and you back developers to make a great game, you're going to see the profits from it. And this is one prime example you can use to show that this is how it is in the games industry. And even bigger, that this is not even in their wheelhouse. They've been making first person shooters for years, and they have made this 180, like I said, and it has been a huge success, and now they have a franchise. And if they keep releasing games like Horizon at the good quality it's been at, probably probably by the third game we could start saying that they could be in that top tier of developers, right next to Naughty Dog, if they keep this trend up. I'm not saying they're there right now. They have to be consistent, and if they can prove they're consistent, they can prove that they are on that top tier, because graphically they make some of the best looking games on the market, hands down. Horizon still looks like one of the best games on the market, and it's been out for a year. And so I bet when we look at the end of the cycle, it's still going to be one of the best looking games on this last generation of hardware. So that is it for this week's Freeze Frame Rate Newscast. What did you think of this week's top stories? Let me know in the comments below. And if you liked this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and if you want to keep up with the content I'm releasing each and every week here on Freeze Frame Rate, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. My name is Mitch. I'm signing off saying, see you soon.